Hello, welcome to part 4 of my build. In this video we will continue the weathering of this robot by adding pigments. And we're starting with Mig Productions Dark Mud, and we're applying the pigment with the cut down number 2 brush. I wondered what exactly to discuss when doing this part of the weathering process, and I guess I just want to impart some kind of understanding that when I begin the weathering phase, I'm not thinking that when the night is over and maybe a couple hours have passed by of me doing this that I will have the finished product. No, far from it. It takes a long time to effectively weather a model, and if you consider that if you spent 6 hours building something, accumulated time, you're probably going to spend 2 to 3 times that in the weathering. And it's very important to look at this phase of the model as one that you will exercise the most patience with, and to gradually build up and build up and build up. And often I step away for a day or two and come back and revisit the model and look at it with a fresh eye, and continue on. And then it's sometimes those accumulation of hours that you really start to achieve something that is really catching to the eye. And so I am applying the pigments here with the brush and just back and forth, turning the model over and back again, and basically pressing the pigment into the paint surface. Now, the surface of the paint is at this point flat because even though it had a satin finish, the washes that I applied in last week's program it effectively killed the sheen to a flat color, and also the actual residue from the wash itself is still on the surface, and that will catch the pigment and allow you to blend the pigment onto the surface much easier. So I just choose spots where it makes sense, where dirt would go and be caught up as the robot's moving here and there, or moving around, or kicking up material. So here I'm using a piece of extruded styrofoam, and I've cut it into a triangular block, and I use it to prop up the model. Makes it easier to get the brush into places that are difficult to get into when it's in its normal standing position. And I also use it for lots of other types of models. If you want to kind of put a tank on an angle so you can get in between the road wheels and close to the track and stuff like that, it's a great tool to use for that purpose. I'm using Mig Productions Russian Earth, and again, just adding another color pigment just to build it up and build it up. I'm going to return to some Europe dust and back to the dark mud, and even some lighter colored stuff, just to create a whole variety of pigment tones. So I'm applying a very heavy wash here to the running plates. I wanted to use it as a binder for all this pigments that are on here, and to give it a very, very dirty appearance. That's the effect I wanted to have, as these plates are attached to the feet and have first contact with the muddy ground. Okay, so here I'm just using some streaking effects, and I'm using Mig Productions Rainmarks, and as we did with the other washes, I'm dispensing a portion into a container. Using a 000 round brush and selecting and applying it to the areas that that water would build up and pool and run down, or just where the rainwater would flow along the course of the surface. And of course I select all these areas at random. I don't want to have any sort of uniformity or predictability in where the rain marks go. I mean, to a certain degree, I guess you could, but I don't want to have them equally spaced out along the model. That's sort of what I'm trying to eliminate there. Now to blend the effect onto the model. I'm using a number 3 flat brush, and with a downward motion, just drawing the wash out gently with the tip of the bristles. And this really gives a nice effect. If you find that the rain marks have dried, it's easy to reactivate it with a moistened brush with mineral spirits. Just be careful that in doing so, you don't reactivate the pigments and the other washes underneath the rain marks. So just a cautionary note there. Okay, so I'm moving on here to a new product that I've been using, and I really like it. It's Mig Productions medium density mud splashes, and I'm using number 1755 wet ground to start here. It's great. It's essentially what I believe is a very thick oil paint, and I just load up a number 3 round or number 4 round or whatever size works for whatever size model you're using. And with the toothpick, because it's disposable, just using that to flick the splashes and the wet mud onto the surface wherever you want it to go. This is really great for tanks and armored vehicles and anything that's going to be immersed in mud. And you can just control how much consistency you do by gently going over and flicking and reloading your paintbrush, and then flicking some more into areas that you like. After this, I switched over to 1751 dry steppe, and it's a very light color. It's a lot lighter. Has a lot less. It's not as thick as the wet ground, and so it splattered a little bit more. And so I went over, after it dried, I went over it with little splotches of the wet ground again, just to sort of take down the intensity of it. So I'll just let it play here, and you can check it out. So I'm nearing the completion of this build, and I'm sort of itching to get on to new subject matter, but I wanted to finish it off by adding some light lenses by MV Products, and I'm using Microscale Kristal Klear as an adhesive to attach them to the sockets. Now, I just wanted to say that I'd probably go further with the weathering process if it was something else, but since it's just a vintage kit, I'm just going to probably call it a day at this point, and maybe just paint some minor details. But I'm going to move on to the next video, which will be the final reveal. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the future, I hope.